So, welcome to Ancestral Echoes.
Mhm.
I like the title, Imelda. We hear these echoes every day. You know,
Yes.
you're in conversation, and somebody says, "Well, this time of the year, uh, if you kill a deer or a moose, you
Mhm.
don't waste anything."
That's right.
And so I always feel like that's our ancestors speaking
Yes.
to us. It's a
Yeah.
special moment
Yeah.
in the day. So th this is being taped, as you just saw come up, and we post the town halls on our website, so people can go back and watch them later. So sometimes people register and then they're busy during the day. They'll come back and check it out later. And uh, all of you that have registered, we're going to put you, if you're not already on our email list, we'll put you on our email list and we'll send you some more information. We got a town hall coming up on uh, November 19th, and it's to do with the legacy of hope. Anyway, so we hope to see you there. It's my honor to introduce Mike Mitchell, and he's going to be doing a Thanksgiving address to start us in a good way. He's a respected leader, as you probably all know. He was born at Akwesasne and raised in a traditional life. So welcome, Mike Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm speaking to you from my home community of Akwesasne. A bright sunny day today. There is no wind. Uh, it's a very beautiful day. And so we're going to open our meeting by acknowledging our Mother Earth. For everything that comes from her is what keeps us strong. And we acknowledge all the medicines. We acknowledge the land and the waters, all the tree life, all the animal life. We acknowledge the four winds, our grandfather, the thunderers that renew and replenish the earth. We acknowledge our grandmother moon, our elder brother sun, who's given us this fine day to meet. We also acknowledge the stars, for our ancestors would use that as markings for their travel at nighttime, and for the beauty that we are reminded of our existence on earth. And then beyond the heavens, we acknowledge our Creator for everything that has been provided to us, are all teachings passed on from our ancestors to us. And we hope we can pass that on. Our traditional teachings, when it was only our people, indigenous people in Turtle Island, when our nations met, when people from different nations would gather and hold council, they appointed somebody to speak on their behalf, and usually an elder to say the words I have just said, from the land to all the elements of nature, to up to the heavens. And before they started their meeting, they say they would clear their mind and they would remind themselves of our duties and responsibilities as human beings. And all we're told to respect all life, all of creation. And then amongst themselves, they had agreements to respect the land, the environment. I wanted to share with you one important belt that was made for all the nations to remember. This one here, dish with one spoon, and it is a teachings of many of our nations. And it's about conservation, it's about respect for the environment, They made this belt as a teaching. And what they talk about is they say, wherever you go hunting, wherever you go fishing, take what you need, but always leave much more plentiful for others to share. Always be grateful for what you can take, but have respect from what you're taking from. And that's to the water, to the land. And so for the hunter, for the fisherman, they live by this code. The nations would share their hunting area. And they made sure to have left the grounds, the hunting grounds or the fishing area in good shape, because somebody else would be coming behind them. And the sharing of our teachings, of our spiritual life was the same. They always had a song to honor life around them. In Akwesasne, we just finished our harvest ceremony. And everything that has come from the land, corn, beans, squash, everything that we have harvested, people gather and they bring together for 4 days and they give acknowledgement to Mother Earth. Children are named, get their name. It is called the 4 sacred ceremonies where Thanksgiving songs are sung, speeches are made. Certain things are acknowledged that are part of our lives, to give respect to one another, to give respect to the land, to give respect to the environment, to give respect to the nation, to make sure that our ceremonies, our spiritual way of life is kept up. The elders share their knowledge with the young. If there's such a thing as education back in them days, this is what they taught. This is what you learn. So today it's a struggle. So our people gather and there's a reemergence of awareness, of language, of ceremony, ceremonial songs, teachings. And so every nation had a nation fire. And they all had sacred wampum, sacred white wampum. And a man would pledge on sacred white wampum as he gives his Thanksgiving greeting to the land, to his people, to the Creator. He would renew his ties with all life. He would also offer words of thanksgiving for this day, for the health of his people, his family, himself, reconnect with his Creator. He might even offer a Thanksgiving chant. He sing for his Creator. And so one of our ceremonies, one of the days that we have set aside is when the men sing their personal chant of thanksgiving. So it is that way for thousands of years for us. We almost lost everything. And now, thanks to other nations that have kept it up, it has reemerged and is now very strong, fiber. Our culture, our language, our ceremonial song is no longer put down. If people that have come back from residential schools that have been told to be ashamed of their spiritual life, of their culture, or take away their language, this cycle that has gone on, while we are in that period of reawakening, we're now begun to realize there's nothing wrong with the way we give our thanks to the Creator. There's nothing wrong with the way we honor all of creation, the sacred teachings that our ancestors gave to us. We have nothing to be ashamed about. Somebody else tried to take that away from us. And so we are in that era of awareness now. We are very confident with what we are. And so every day, a family would greet the sun with a thanksgiving, acknowledging all life on Mother Earth and have respect for one another. So these openings are only part of what our culture is about as a Bahuma. It is a practice of nations across this land that was before European people came. And when they came, they tried to take that away from us. Our spiritual connection to the land, to the environment, to the Creator is reemerging. And this is why it is our duty to offer these sacred teachings and make us aware with one another. We have to work very hard to preserve our indigenous languages, our ceremonial knowledge, to bring it back and put it in front for the people to share. This is what our indigenous awareness to ourselves, to remind ourselves how sacred our teachings are. We're no longer in a period of somebody telling us to be ashamed, not to speak our language, not to know our ceremonies. For those people that try to take it away, they lost that, because the spirit of ourselves is still very strong. And so we need to teach our young people all the elements of our culture that will reinforce our traditional way, our traditional strengths, our Ubahumwe. And I thought I would say these things and share, because these are only instruments. Wampum, musical instruments for us to express our thanksgiving, our traditional knowledge. And so I offer these words as a way to open our today's meeting, because we are very thankful that we're able to preserve elements of our teachings, of our culture, of our languages with one another. We can no longer tolerate anyone telling us to be ashamed of who we are, of what our culture is based on. We're very proud that our ancestors fought to preserve these knowledges and pass them on to us. And so when we talk about education, I look at the association, education association, organization as we have it. Our traditional teachings has to be part of that. We have to teach our students, our young people, to put pride back in themselves, awareness of who they are. That's where the strength will lie. And so your meeting today becomes very important, because today we will be sharing this. And I want to offer just a small bit in our language of what I had just shared with you. No one is allowed. When do I get the Lord? Signore, di dua dança. Kasi do ano harado, nessa guia diz. Wago no hunjaga, janota dona tkau haki, em que a dana ratsta. Tia tinumara. Tiga negarunya, tia guirot. Nagago gaio, dona down haki. Digging the garapa. Which is the question on the old. We're going to do a road. Scaniguna Gunyat, tia tinuarat. All the elements of creation, because we're only a small part of it. We live beside and with. And so the respect for life isn't just ourselves. Today we are in a period of what they call climate change. This is only part of many of our nation's prophecies, that there will come a time when we'll go through times like this. It's a reminder. It's a reminder for ourselves to be aware, to have respect back into the life force. Those are the words that will open your meeting today.
Yeah, we'll go. I'd like to introduce Dr. Paulette Tremblay, who's the president and CEO of FNEAA. Turn it over to Paulette.
Sagoscano, everybody. I'm Mohawk from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory with my band membership there, a Turtle Clan, born into the Turtle Clan. And my dad's reserve is Tyendinaga Bay of Quinte Mohawks near Belleville. I was born in Belleville in a hospital, and I was raised and grew up on the reserve in Tyendinaga. And I take great pleasure but I was at Six Nations all of the time. All my relations are there, and we were really in both places. So I am a proud Mohawk, and I really love my culture. I love that we have at the center the tree of peace and the values of righteousness, which is justice for our people, having power and control of First Nations education, and having equality and love and charity and unity taught, and given thanks to the universe and to the Creator for being with us through the silent years of colonialism. He was with us, holding us up and carrying us and cradling us and loving us. And we did not forget because he made us stronger. And so this is part of my identity. And I'm so proud of it, the self-esteem I get from that and the hope I get from that, carrying it forward. I'm so privileged to be part of the First Nations Education Administrators Association because in our mission and vision and values, that's what we are. We're a gathering place for people to come, to gather, to share, to their experiences and tell the stories from their First Nations tradition and teachings and ceremonies about who they are. And then we have to do that teaching about the traditions. And so at Six Nations, at the First Nations Education Administrators Association, we spend a lot of time learning how to do that in our traditional way. Does anybody really know? No, we don't know because we've been immersed in poverty, we've been immersed in colonialism, we've been treated as wards of the straits, but we don't want to, and it didn't work. Those hundreds of years didn't work for us. And our knowledge keeper, I want to thank him for a wonderful prayer this morning, told us that, well, our ways, our traditions are thousands of years old. And so we can't forget them. We didn't lose them. People went underground and kept them, and people kept going in silence. And now is time for us to change that because the legislation, the policy of the federal government and the Prime Minister going to in 2017 United Nations telling the world that the relationship between Indigenous peoples and Canada have to change. It has to be transformed. It has to be built on the United Nations Declaration clauses that tell us that we are self-determining people. We are people who need to be who we are, and our cultures and teachings have to come first. We have to take control of First Nations education. We have to be self-determining. We have to be have a voice, and we have and the relationship has to change so that we build a relationship that enables First Nations to do that. So that's why we're seeing much of the change. It's a requirement to change, to transform into who we are. And so with reconciliation and the residential schools, that was shameful, that was an act of genocide. It took away so much. It took away the child from the parent and the parent from the child. And so we have to do lots of work to do healing because it's still current, it's still real, it still hurts, it still aches. And so we need to tell our stories and share our ways. And how do we do that? Well, we go back to community, the place where it all started, where we were born, where we were raised, where we did our connections to our ancestors, the place where our prayers are, our ancestors are there to help us, and we have to grab onto that and listen to the stories of our knowledge keepers and our elders, and look at how they did things. We go home, we learn to stand up and give voice to what worked before. So I look at my history and I think about when I grew up, my grandpa taking me out hunting, fishing, and I can shoot because we had to live and we had gardens. And I remember picking strawberries in the field. Oh my God, those wild strawberries like this big. You're out there all afternoon and you only get this much. And yet that was a way of living. We use the berries. Our strawberries are the first berries. There's a ceremony for that. So we need to know these things. We need to actualize them and bring them back and talk about it. Important to share our voices now. Important to let people know how wonderful as a people our culture is and continues to be. And we didn't lose it. We're getting it back, and I'm so proud of that. And I want to thank Dr. Pearlie. I know I was listening to some of her messages, and I've heard her speak before, and she says, Paulette, you have to wear your moccasins wherever you go. And I've got like 10 pair of moccasins. I wear them all the time. And when I go to speak or to present, I wear moccasins. So I have my moccasins on today, and I'm fully dressed. I've got regalia on and the sun, because I'm from the Eastern Door, and that's our duty and obligation to take care of that. And so it's something I can do that's small, that resonates. And I have to tell you, it feels so powerful walking in with moccasins, because they make the connection to our ancestors and to the Creator and give us the right words to say. They come from our heart with passion, and they come from our spirit, and they come from our Creator. And so how fortunate are we to be able to do this? And so when I speak to our young people, I tell them that, and they smile. And so let's get those people wearing moccasins to when they go. I want to thank Imelda and hold her up for making something I can do on a regular basis feel so connected and positive, and sharing that tradition. And I know that we're still very invisible. There's still a lot of racism. So it helps us fight that, and it helps us stand up against that. And I know people are coming to me and saying, what can we do? What can we do to help you, to be on your side, to make a difference, so that we can get these transformation relationships moving forward? So we get a mindset change at, all of the federal government departments we work with, especially Indigenous Services Canada and Crown Indigenous Relationships Canada. What can we do? So that is so positive. It's so hopeful. It shining a beacon and a light. And so let's be that light. Let's shine the way. Let's start turning people on to who we are. So Nyawagoa.
Nyawagoa, Paulette. Thank you for that. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Imelda Pearlie. She's currently elder in residence at Chief Harold Sapieha Memorial Elementary School. And she's been a cultural consultant with Health Canada. And she has a number of important community roles as sweat lodge keeper, sacred pipe carrier, and keeper of the women's ceremonies. So everything Imelda does is innovative, because a lot of the things that we do are for the first time, as Paulette has said. And so I turn it over to Imelda, and she will introduce her other speakers that are presenting with her. Imelda.
Oh, thank you. Oh, kolasik open askmit peltamotit kitak migoma walastuk yawiek. Leo and Elder Mike for keeping the spark of our languages close to heart, close to land, close to water, close to air, so that they will survive, with the ceremonies that you opened with today. That those are the ancestral echoes I talk about, is what you have said will permeate through the air, and the wind will bring it to the all directions for us to hear, to adhere to, and to wait for, so that we can also walk the tracks of all our ancestors. So I give gratitude to Mike for that opening ceremony. And I'm so proud of the two panelists that have joined me, my young language warriors, and it makes us elders really feel that we're doing okay, because we have young people that want to continue to learn and to follow in those tracks. These two young people that are with me today, I messaged them and I told them a few days ago that you're the ones that are following the ancestral echo tracks, but you're turning it into a highway because of the work that you're doing and carrying forward and willing to take. So I just so am happy. So the first panelist I wanted to after the presentation is Diamond Spazowen. Her spirit name is Morning Fog, and that's the one that teaches us about greeting each day in patience and gratitude. And so so just that mist, from our river source, gives her the power and the energy to carry her gifts each day, as long as she acknowledges that. And of course, from Willamugduk, place of the deep waters, and of course, she's the I think she was writing me, which I didn't have a chance to respond. Malamik is part Wolastoqey and part Mi'kmaq and stuff, so but now we'll have to say Willamik or something like that, so we'll have to find a way to say that. She has served in her community in the role of high school or Mukto High School, and I think she still helps with that, and of course student intervention worker, student support worker at Ginabwigaki Dimuk, which is the word is a school of courage, courage to take back, to reclaim, to honor our culture. And so the school is actually within her community. And so there's lots of ceremonial things happening there that she oversees and supports. And of course, she became the youngest woman to be elected in Willamugduk Tribal Council, focusing a lot of her time and attention on culture, language, and education. And after finishing her first degree at UNB, she currently is working with the education portfolios in UNB's First Nation Leadership and Governance Program. And I'm still holding up my hope for her that she'll go into law school. So she's going to be accompanying me at it's just this year, the Law Society has asked for pipe ceremonies and reenactment of treaty ceremonies, and also every first year law student here at UNB is going to be learning about pipe ceremonies and treaty making ceremonies. So Diamond is under my wing with that. And of course, before I go into the PowerPoint, I just wanted to get everybody excited about my next panelist, which is Heaven. And Heaven is our Miss New Brunswick. Our Miss New Brunswick. I'm so proud of the work that she's doing. And of course, her spirit name means Sasagizos, the one who shines, heals with her sunshine. And I actually have a picture of her. I should have put it in my PowerPoint when she was about maybe 7 years old, 8 years old, when she was Miss Tobic, her and her sister. So here she is now, Miss New Brunswick, and stuff. So quite an achievement. And of course, as Miss New Brunswick, she uses her platform, which I know she'll talk about. And so she's also our language teacher at our Maso school in our community, and she is the youngest language teacher to take on that role. So I totally support, and I'm so lucky to have these two beautiful young women that are going to be here. And I have a grade 5 student who's trying to make it back from a session to come and share with you what she's learning here at Chief Harold Sapir at the end of our before we close off. So these three young women just make me shine. So Lewin and Walalin. And Geldenok Gizos, El Gimo Desquinadex. So today is November 9th. So Geldenok Gizos is our freezing moon. So Geldenok Gizos, freezing moon, teaches us the medicine of inner strength. Our ancestors left behind their healing tracks of wisdom for us to follow within our own DNA, as our elder Mike was saying. Freezing moon teaches us to look within our own hearts, our spirits, our minds to seek their strength. We hear our ancestors when our Earth Mother begins to freeze her rivers, forests, and lakes. Snowshoes remember the path of our ancestors. And of course, this artwork from Natalie Sapir of Jajakwi Zamagwan, she depicted on what our ancestors did to welcome the newcomers. And so we'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of Wolastoqiyik people of the beautiful and bountiful river Wolastoq. This homeland is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which the Wolastoqiyik, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. These treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Wolastoqiyik, Mi'kmaq, and Passamaquoddy title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. And so our school here, I'm teaching the students, my grade 4, 5, and 6 students to do land acknowledgements in their language. And so they've been practicing that. So for myself, I belong to Gilhuzwi and Goksus clans. I belong to the Muskrat and Fox clans on my maternal side. And of course, salmon and wolf on my male side. My traditional name is Ablosomwez, which means moon of the whirling wind, because I was named after one of these 13 moons, but I wasn't allowed to use that name in the day school that I attended. I have one sister and 3 brothers who went to residential school, and I was spared by my grandmother, so I stayed behind with my grandmother. But even going to the day school, I wasn't allowed to use my traditional name, which I'm since trying to reclaim and keep. So here at the school, the children call me a Blossomwez as opposed to using my English name. My spirit name is Manwan Olive, which means rainbow cloud, which I received in the territory of Aotearoa, which was in New Zealand. And Oak Mikumil, and I got in Cranberry Portage by the Cree elders that were there, which means grandmother rain. And so what you see on the screen is, as a child, I'm 73, almost 74. And you see where language was, the community echo. You could hear within the community everywhere where language was. We heard it culturally, we heard it socially, we heard it in the economy that we were building, which was bartering, and of course in our political realm. So our birth ceremonies, as Elder Mike mentioned, just this weekend, I did a doula training, a traditional doula training. We did a placental burial in the community. We did we made our moss bags for new moms, and those are activities that we're going to keep on going. And of course, naming ceremonies are important because, as Mike mentioned, This is one way that I'm finding of saving the language by naming every child that comes into our communities, into our nation, to have a traditional name. So we're very active in keeping that as to make the echo louder, and they're so proud of their names. And I know those of us who have names, how proud we are to have our names. But I'm teaching our students here to introduce themselves first with their spirit name, because it's their spirit that's going to keep them in balance, with their physical activities that they need to do. Ajigdin Hadimag is our birthdays. There's when we talk about 13 moon ceremonies, and knowing about 13 moons, I always tell people it's so important to have a birth story. It's important to have your birth song. It's important for you to know when you came into the world, from the spirit world to the physical world, so that you can always carry that birth story. And of course, how we celebrate birthdays is different in all cultures, but I remember one particular one for my elder who was 80 at the time. And rather than put 80 candles on the candle for him to blow out, I was able to invite 80 community members to come and light a candle in front of him and say, I lit this candle for the light you put in me, for teaching me how to make a basket. Then they would blow it out, and the next one would come, I want to thank you for teaching me how to gather medicines. And then the next one would come up and say, so there were 80 reasons that we gave this elder, to thank this elder for all the things that they've progressed. And it was the most amazing ceremony that I've ever hosted. And so it's a different way of looking at birthdays, is honoring the person, for everything that they've contributed to in the years that they've been gifted with. And of course, we've been reviving and reclaiming traditional weddings. There's so many different ways of doing this. So just this year, I think I did 5 traditional weddings. And of course, the couple will earn a wedding shawl with 2 eagle feathers at the end for them to wrap around them in times of discussion when there's disagreements. And the eagle feathers will teach them how to be truthful to each other so that trust can be built. And so I'm just excited. There's more that I'm planning, but those are some of the ceremonies of reclamation that we need to do. And I know there's other ceremonies where couples don't expect gifts to be gifted to them. They make the gifts to give to the people that they invite. But it's a little of both. And of course, we do death feasts, Mechin Hadimagai. We do, as there's birth doulas, there's something we call spirit work. We get the elders ready, or who's ever passing over, to do get them ready for their spirit walk. So I just did one a few nights ago for one of my community members in one of the communities. And I have to admit, he's 84 and he loves Christmas. So his family went and really lit up his home with Christmas lights that it took up so much power that the entire block was out of power for about 4 hours because of all the lights and stuff. But the elder just kind of felt that this was his gift, that he's getting ready for the darkness. And of course, our smudging ceremonies, how important it is to do those ceremonies, to give each day. We use 4 medicines when we do our smudging ceremonies. We use sweetgrass in the morning, and we use sage in the midday. We use birch bark fungus when the sun sets, and of course, cedar at night. And so we have each phase of the day that gives us purpose to do ceremony. And of course, our sweat lodge ceremony, just Friday night, my youngest participant in the sweat lodge was a 6-week-old baby, and I invited his mom and other babies, and of course their parents, to come into the lodge. We only used 9 grandfathers, but it was still an amazing celebration of new life, coming into our community. And the young man who was our doorkeeper was actually at a sober house trying to leave his addictions behind. So when we were done, he was so emotional. He says, I've never seen a baby come into a lodge. And I said, imagine, Gus, that if every baby had this opportunity, we might not need sober houses. We might not need rehabs. We might not need that. But we all have to think about how to get that baby grounded in our cultural foundation so that they don't get lost and stuff. And he agreed. And of course, our spiritual beliefs, the different ways that we do ceremony, the water ceremony, giving gratitude to before we go hunting, giving gratitude after going to that maple tree and asking for its lifeblood to sweeten our lives. So there's a lot that we have. So what this shows is where language was in the past. When I was growing up, it was in all those directions in every aspect. So next slide, please. So of course, and of course in this one, it has to do with our economical realm, our hunting, our trapping, and again, doing that respect of thanking the animals for giving up their lives for us. And of course, Kjikwalo our forestry, our standing ones. We have ceremonies that we do that we need, we need the alders, we need the cedar, we need there's so much in our way that we did it. We didn't just go and look at our trees as dollar signs, like unfortunately, the province does. When you think about crown land, well, they see crown jewels in our forest, but for us, we see them as relatives, the standing ones. And so that's the relationship that our elder Mike was talking about, is to find a balance that we leave something behind for future generations. And of course, Busnadekadimag, our basket making, our crafts. We have legends of what a basket symbolizes in a community realm. And of course, our all the when people talk about literacy, I always say it upsets me when we have the province pushing literacy and numeracy. Yes, I know they're important, but I want them to be Indigenous literacy and Indigenous numeracy, so that way they continue to academically learn in their ways as well. Because sometimes I feel, and I'm sure most elders out there agree, that are we sending our children to provincial day schools? How much of that curriculum is filled with our culture? How much of it is filled? So I'm nudging our province here to promote Indigenous literacy just as much as they do French and English, because it's a bilingual province. And so so that's part of the work that Paulette was talking about. There's still things to be done. We're invisible when it comes to language legislation. Yes, we have this decade of this Indigenous decade, to bring our languages back, but there has to be a lot more than what we're being offered right now. Fishing and guiding, we're having so many issues with fishing, but we knew when to fish, we knew what to catch, we knew when to do this. But when these new DFO rules came along, they limited that and they ruined it. And now we get the blame for less stock. We get the blame for the diseases that are in the woods, in the water, not realizing that the pollution didn't come from us. Because I remember drinking water from Woolastuk out when, on my grandfather's canoe, and dipping my hands in to Woolastuk, our beautiful river that's been renamed St. John, and drinking from her then. I can't do that now, and my children and grandchildren can't. So that's that, what our elder Mike was talking about. That's that echo. That's that ancestral echo that we have to talk about, that there was a time our water was clean, and now we have communities that don't even have clean water. So we that have access to drinking water. We can't be wasting it. We have a ceremony here with our, I just did yesterday for Indigenous Veterans Day. All my school children, the girls, had water in a copper cup, and they offered a drink for every wreath that was put on for our Indigenous vets, and you should have seen how gentle they were, just putting a little drink into our Earth Mother to send a prayer of it, to send a prayer for that Indigenous vet that was being mentioned. So we have to use our water in a ceremonial way and not just think of it as a resource. So that's what I grew up with, was that kind of thinking. Our community leaders, when we talk about our political system, yes, Indian Affairs has kind of guided us. Oh, we're going to have 2-year terms. We're going to have 4-year terms. Oh, we're going to take over your band council resolutions. You have to ask us permission. So we're still limited there. But Nujibudwuzultit, that's an old word that means our community leaders have to carry the depth of their responsibility and then, talk about it. Like Elder Mike said, it's important to talk about all those things. You can't just take an issue, keep it in and not talk about it. It has to be brought out so that it can be echoed throughout the community so we can all work together. For Nika Nikabwijik, our directors, our managers, need to indigenize the health programs that are coming in, that I think it's called integrative service delivery. Well, I want to make it more indigenous and not just integrating. I don't want to completely leave out the Western side, but I want it to be more indigenous than it is Western. And of course, our Zagamuk traditional leadership, our chief system. So Gelwiskov, the carrier of truth. So these are all the political realm that we need to work towards. Stuff next. Yeah. And so now it's our individual, it's so that's community realms that I just shared, where language was, where language might not be now, where language needs to be put in. But it's going to take us individually, to make sure that we learn our language spiritually, we learn our language emotionally, we learn our language physically, and we remember our language within our minds. And so ceremony, as our elder said, those ceremonies are important. Those wampum belts are important. Those Thanksgiving addresses are important. So our pipe ceremonies is what's going to keep this alive and well. So oracy, we have issues going through courts right now about, it was never written, therefore it's not true. So we have to make a stand that our oral traditions are just as valid as their documents. And so storytelling was a way we carried language forward, because we heard and we listened, so that's what we have to do, is we have to continue to make sure that that's the work that I do with my babies, is before they're even born, I make sure that they hear the language before they're even born, so that they'll carry it forward. And of course, we're going to need literacy, and I know we had a cultural literacy in our wampum belts, our cultural literacy in our petroglyphs. There's cultural literacy in our weaving, in our carving, and in all of that. So we need to make sure that that's not lost and continues. And today we use a different writing system, but at least we're leaving records behind so that our echoes will be heard. So it's going to be forever saved, from the womb to beyond. That's the program I'm in with. It's means giving language while the babies are still in the womb, getting them ready for those naming ceremonies that Elder Mike talked about, and then to make sure that we continue so that their walking out ceremony is done, their puberty ceremony is done, their wedding ceremony is done, and all those other ceremonies. We're definitely involved in traditional doula training so that we start labor coaching. We do have a birthing center that's a vision, and we have the funding for, and we're going to start building soon. Our sacred fires need to be lit at birth as well. I'm part of the Wampum CISM team, which is Critical Incident Stress Management, but we always were called on just for critical incidents, I want to add that birthing, that we light fires for when moms go to the hospital, you know, to start at labor, that they know that there's a sacred fire and the community is coming to pray at the fire for them, you know, or if we do have a home birth. And of course, to greet them with drums when they come home, you know, so moss bags, you know, traditional ways of carrying the baby, our naming ceremonies. And now it's not just naming spirits. I've had moms ask me to name their babies before they leave the hospital so they can have their traditional name. And of course, we've done with APTN, we did Little Gluskab Adventures. During COVID, we did 20 episodes of our cartoons in French, English, and Wolastoqey as a way to share our stories to non-Indigenous children, to hear our, because we're so Walt Disneyed, you know, and yes, maybe Pocahontas is considered an Indigenous story, but it's not ours. And so what we have to do is, our children are so Walt Disney that we have to make sure that they're Indigenous, you know, so we have to come up with a new Walt Disney way that's Indigenous. I am doing a book, A Reader is Born, you know, they have this Born to Read program in our province, where every baby that's born in the hospital, or I've recently asked for home birth babies to get the same treatments they get oh, come on in, yeah. So I have A Reader is Born in progress. So I'm publishing that book, and I'm developing a rainbow literacy, which are 3D alphabets that are stuck together to showcase, because some of our plural forms have 4 letters and stuff. And then, of course, lots of language apps in the progress. So all those celebrations. So next, please. So this is my last slide. I'm going to go into the other women, and then I've got my young women here at the end. So let's all sort together to seek ancestral echoes wherever we go, to hear ancestral echoes in all of creation, that wind, that water, that snow, that rain, and nurture our legacy of gifting new breath to all our sacred treasures within us and our 7 generations past, present, and for those yet to be born. May that be our truth. And thank you. And I hope I'm not taking too much time. You have to stop me, Claire, or somebody, if I'm going beyond my time. And so right now, Diamond, if you don't mind, I'd like to have my youngest girl here, because she has to go home soon. We're at school, and so she has to go home. So I'm going to have her introduce herself, and then she's going to say the language honor code, and then I'll leave it to you, Diamond. Okay, Duas? Okay, so come here, Duas. Yeah. So here's my grade 5 student, Ava, but she's going to introduce her spirit name. Go ahead. Yeah. Come close that. Yeah. Yeah. Jajak.
Tujako Weasel Kachi Zigo Nassau, sacred breath of spring, one who welcomes the warm winds of spring.
Was Walton Morgan.
Was a Walter Morgan.
Go ahead and read it. Nukmasik.
Nukmasik Nagamusum Sig Waliwan Chalataway Wagan Gizi Metawaki Ak Chil Neelan Nil Nuchti Getch Nolayaman Chil which Guabazita Nidalayage. Grandmothers and grandfathers, thank you for our language you have saved for us. It is now our turn to save it for the ones who are not yet born. May that be the truth.
Tahoe. There, our youngest speaker. All right. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Yes, and stuff. So she's my little helper. So I'm going to introduce Diamond, which I already did. And Diamond, Leewin for joining us today in your busy, busy schedule. So I leave it to you, Dos. Because Elmo.
Leewin. Quay, Indali Spazuin, Naga Diamond Stevens, Nujia Wellamukta, Wilstik Nil. Hi, my name is Mornan Fogg. My English name given at birth by my mom and dad is Diamond Stevens, and I'm from Ormukto First Nation. And I'm very honored and grateful to be here today to listen to all you amazing speakers and to hear the language and hear how excited it makes everybody. In my community, we do a lot of things to incorporate the language, whether it would be labeling things at our gym or labeling the schools and things like that. And right now myself, I'm actually working on 2 language projects. One is a board game that I am going to be doing with the Language Conservancy, and I think their head office is in Indiana. So we're working on a board game right now. And what I have to do with that is I have to reach out to community members and elders for feedback and maybe ideas of ways we can make it more indigenized into our game. It's almost like a Candyland game, but we're gonna have the language, and then we're gonna have the sacred colors in it, some traditional artwork, and hopefully incorporate some of our artists here in the community too to put into the game. And then I also have a children's storybook that we'll be working on soon in the community. And we really want to amplify the language in the community. And, most importantly, right now, it's our children, the young ones are catching on to the language so good. They're fully immersed in school. They come home from school and they teach me a new word a day. And we have a little thing here in the house. If they can bring me two new words a week, then we'll go get treat at the end of the week on a Sunday like that. So language is very important in the community, very important in my family, very important to myself. And it's something that I will continue to grow and expand as I go on in my future, on my path that is so very influenced by the ancestors and my amazing mentors and the amazing people in my community and outside my community. Just feel like I had something else I wanted to mention. I can't remember what I was going to say. I think I just lost my train of thought. Is there any questions?
Yeah, I think they'll do it afterwards. Yeah, they'll do it after heaven and stuff. Okay, Doris, you did well, wonderful and stuff.
Sue and
But
Dolabam,
yeah,
we really win.
yeah. Okay. Right on, Heaven.
Quay, Nondaliwas Gigatwazid, Nagas Pumpkig, Nilnajan Nagutkuk, Willistickow Nil, Nil Willistickway Ludaway Wagon, Gaki Gamid, Nil Miss New Brunswick. So, hi, my name is Healing Sunshine, or the one who heals with sunshine. My English name given to me from my parents is Heaven. Sorry, that's my dismissal bell. I was waiting on that. I am Woolstic Gower. I'm Maliseed. I am from New Brunswick. I am the youngest Maliseet language teacher in our nation. I teach at my community school, Mosso School, and I'm also Miss New Brunswick. Language to me has always been important. Like growing up, right from when I could walk, when I could talk, I was out there dancing at the powwows, begging my mom to make me regalia, begging my mom to learn the language because she actually is a day school survivor, so I didn't grow up hearing it as much. I didn't hear it from my grandmother either, who speaks pretty fluently, but she told me that, nope, I don't speak that no more. So growing up, I didn't really hear it, but it's always been something that's been super involved in my life. I kind of took it upon myself to learn. When I actually came to this school that I'm working at now, I had a wonderful Notagaki Gamut, a wonderful teacher named Iris Nicholas, who was an Indian residential school survivor. And she had just really instilled the language within me. Right from like the first day that I met her, it was, you will be the next language teacher at Mossos. That's going to be your path. So right from when I was 5 years old till I was at a grade 5, that's all I was told was, you will be the next language teacher. And I kind of was very proud, and even through my middle school and high school, any opportunity I had to share with my class, any opportunity I had to present in the school, shawl dance and open and prayer, things like that, I always took it. In my grade 12 year, is when I decided to dip my toe in the water as a co-op student. My elder, Delbert Moulton, had allowed me to come into his classroom and practice teaching with his grade 9 students, which was super cool. Currently, I am enrolled in the Wabanaki Bachelor of Education course through UNB, or University of New Brunswick. So I actually am learning how to teach with this two-wide seeing to incorporate Indigenous perspectives from the New Brunswick curriculum and find a way to include as much Indigenous culture and language as possible. So even in my schooling now, it's always encouraged to use the language, always encouraged to include ceremonies or culture. Now in my role as a teacher, I find I try to instill the language any way that's possible. I've took games and translated it in the language. I've had Imelda come in and she's introduced herself to my class and they all still talk about her. We do the language honor code every day. I try my best to include word and signage. And to me, it doesn't matter which spelling, as long as the students can speak it. That's what's important to me. So I incorporate labels and we do word of the week. I started this thing called Traditional Tuesdays in my community, and I think that's kind of spread out throughout New Brunswick. So I encourage my students to come dressed in their traditional clothing, whatever that means to them. So that's moccasins, braids, beaded jewelry, maybe a medallion. They come dressed sometimes even in full regalia, which is nice. And I've also encouraged staff members. I've encouraged other people within my community to participate in Traditional Tuesday. I recently have started making booklets to send home with my students because I know that, like what Blossom has said, we are so influenced by the media that we see. We listen to the radio in English, songs are in English, the TV's in English, books are in English. So I've tried to make resources for my students to take home with them to either teach their parents or their siblings. But I think it's important to start pushing that language in the home just as much as we have been in the schools. I'm also was a part of the Little Gluskub Nagaski Jinui Atkukagano. So Gluskub in the Legends of Turtle Island. I voiced 3 characters on that. I show that in my classroom. I make them listen to it in a holistic way. We go through the words that they know. Then we listen to it in English. Within all of our events or ceremonies at the school, I try my best to incorporate ceremony and song and the language. But basically, I'm just doing whatever I can to get my students to be proud that they are Maliseet, that they live in the community, that they have the opportunity that their grandparents or even parents might not have had. Because, like, unfortunately, this is kind of new. This is new to have a First Nation school where we can incorporate ceremony, where we can smudge daily. Even in provincial schools, that's a big fight to have the smudge in there. So I guess I just really do multiple things, whether that's adapting something from English into the language, creating that own resource on my own, or reaching out to elders to see if they can come in and give me any advice. I noticed that the use of technology, we did Jeopardy in the language. We did a game called Kahoot in the language. I've did, I don't know if you guys know what TikTok is, but I've did a couple TikToks in the language. So incorporating technology has helped benefit my students too. Just kind of trying to use whatever media they're going to use, whatever media they're used to seeing, and incorporating the language or incorporating culture and really just letting them kind of guide their own learning journey too. Because I find that if they're interested, they will pick it up, they will retain the information, and they most likely will take it home and take it to mom or dad or Mimi or Mumu or their grandparents, and they will be teaching it. And I've actually had feedback that, oh, what does this mean? Because my kid comes home and they tell me this every day. Or I was at a birthday party recently. It was my cousins, and like 10 little 6-year-olds running around going Gila, Gila, and Dama. So they're saying like you or no or things like that. So it's just been a fun journey that I'm trying lots of different things, doing whatever I can just to kind of inspire my students the way that my teachers inspired me. Leewin.
I was just thinking the energy. See what I mean about this young energy? Isn't that amazing that they're going to be the highway, the Trans-Canada highway to language learning and saving. I was just thinking about recently the UNB women's hockey team hosted a Orange Shirt Society fundraiser. And what we did at our school is we had each student do one word in the language. And so what we did is we wanted to do a language wave around the Aitken Center. And we wanted to do everybody hold up their language all the way around and everything. But what I didn't realize was not too many people go to women's hockey teams. So we're gonna try to raise the awareness for the kids to go to a bigger event. So I'm gonna try to get the men's hockey team. And the way I'm compromising is I used to do play-by-play when Fredericton Canadians were here in New Brunswick at the Aitken Center many years ago. And our university had a local radio station which played into our St. Mary's radio station. And I used to do play-by-play, and then I would go to the elders the following Monday and say, did I say goaltender right? Did I say left wing, right wing, etc. and stuff. So I enjoyed doing it, and the elders loved it, that I want to do it again. But I told the teams that I have to practice first, so I watched Montreal Canadiens play last night, and we turned the volume down so I could practice doing the play-by-play. So, but I see you, Heaven, as being one of those ones to do the play-by-play, you know what I mean? So, but anyways, yeah, those are the kind of things we have to let our kids know, that their language doesn't just belong in the school classroom or in their community. They need to know it's going to be out there everywhere, wherever, however, and so Lewan does. Yes, absolutely. So back to you, Paulette.
I want to say, Nyawagoa,
Yeah.
Diamond, Heaven, you guys rock. I mean, I could hear your passion. I could sense your requirement to get it right, to do it right, to be professional, just be you. Just be you. It's enough. It's enough. You bring such energy and joy, and if you've got young kids running around at a birthday party, Heaven, saying words, and now everybody wants to know what those words are, I would have been following them. So what does that mean? What does that mean? And then they teach me. Then they teach me, and I can learn. And I have to tell you, I am terrible at pronouncing words. I am just beyond belief, but I'm still doing it, and I'm not giving it up. I'm going to be able to say at our next national gathering, I'm going to do a small presentation in the language. I'm going to do it. And so you just have to believe in yourself, and we see that you believe in you, and you believe in who you are. You believe in your identity. There's nothing more powerful than that, and getting it in your language and sharing it and sharing it and sharing it, and in any way possible. I know Imelda is out there tromping the path. Okay, what can we do? What can we do? How else can we do it? We're going to be taking a land-based training with Imelda and learning some of your language, and so we're excited about that. We're trying to do everything we can to move forward, to get us where we need to be. And if it is reminding people all of the time about the words, then that's what we have to do. I know I'm slow with it, and I know that it takes more time than I want it to, but we're having fun with it too. We're learning about each other as we do it. And so your joy, your passion, and then that young Ava, oh my goodness.
Yes.
She just came in and she stood up and she spoke, and she was remarkable. Like, good work, Imelda. I can only give you all praise. I can only give you that because we need to hear more of this, and we can, do a language, do some language, more of these to help you spread the word, Imelda, to help you get it out. And, you might get some followers that want to help and think of ways they can help you, doing some research and using words from their culture. Let's make it national. Let's not make it just local or regional. To do
Right.
this, we gotta extend our reach and try to encourage people. And I think that there will be money forthcoming for some of these things that you're doing, because language is receiving a lot of attention, and it should, and it must. We must encourage it. So you are our champions for sure. And we are so honored and delighted by all that you shared with us today, and naming ceremonies. We have to do more of that so people have their names. And I know that, Imelda, you were saying about all aspects of a life are filled with tradition.
Yep.
How glorious is that?
Mhm.
All our ancestral echoes in all that we do, from birth to death, and even when you're in the womb. And so when we look at a life where you're building sacred fires, all of this energy that connects us, that makes us whole, that connects us to self-identity and storytelling, like, we can marvel at storytelling because everybody has a different story.
That's right.
And they're all real, and they're all important. And so, what can I say except I don't want to have Pocahontas anymore. I want Indigenous stories.
Yeah.
I want it in our language, and if we have to share what that means, that's what we do. We
right.
do what we have to do to get it done. That's what I see, and trying to grab onto everything we can use and share it in our life pathway, and our life journey to be who we are, to demonstrate that.
Yeah.
So I want to say, Nyangoa, I'd encourage everybody else to
Mhm.
tell us what you think. Give us a comment. Share with Imelda. Share with Diamond. Share with Claire. Not Claire. Heaven. Claire moved on my screen.
Yeah.
So
And
I meant Heaven.
Yeah.
And so please share your comments. Nyangoa.
Yeah. If there's any not only that, I was going to tell the girls, I had a Santa Claus who went to Santa Claus school in Michigan for 2 years. And he said, I want to be the best Santa Claus this year. Would you teach me how to say Merry Christmas in your language? So I'm going to be teaching local Santa Claus how to say Merry Christmas in our language this year. And so he's going to be part of my Christmas theme, which is Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is My Language. Oh, someone has a question.
After hearing all your wonderful stories, I've come to the realization that both my children have not yet been named.
Ooh.
And listening to you ladies today has made me feel, and share with my other half, that we feel that they should go through the ceremony and partake and learn their name and start learning their language.
Yes.
So
yes.
thank you, Nyangoa.
Yeah.
Truly do believe in what you're doing, and it is truly awe-inspiring, because again, it's made me come to enlightenment today that I want to get my children involved in the community again.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
After Adam just said, there's never a wrong or right time to get immersed in the language and culture. I wasn't given my spirit name until a few years ago, but it took me to realize how important it was to step up to that podium and be willing to accept a spirit name. I didn't I didn't have it when I was younger. So as I grew up older and it was like involving myself more in culture and language and stuff like that, I realized how important it is to have your spirit name and to acknowledge your spirit and to love your spirit too. So it's I'm really glad that you thought of that, because it's such a special moment and it's so precious. Holy One.
So Imelda, I don't know if I told you, my grandson this summer dreamt a name for me. And my daughter said, I don't know if a 5-year-old can name his grandfather, give him a name. And so she checked with one of the elders, and he said, well, he's so close to the spirit world that, you can't not say no. So they did a little ceremony for me this summer to give me this name. So
Yeah.
it is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially now with the TRC calls to action, there's a lot of them that are going to be putting it on their passports. And so I'm naming adults as well, and so anyways, yes, it's definitely reclamation of identity. And when we think about how the colonizers came to our territory and started renaming everything without consultation, they knew what they were doing. They were stamping on our identity and putting theirs in its place. And so what we have to do is reclaim that, and start, growing that want our identity, want in our traditions, want in our ways. Matter of fact, just speaking of Christmas, last night I had a staff meeting here at the school, and we have a literacy week at our school to encourage, our children reading. So I've got an author who I worked with his Indigenous books, which he'll be coming to read. I'll be doing 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, Huron Christmas Carol, a lot of those ones in the language. But our principal said, and a Blossomers is going to be Mrs. Santa Claus. And of course, everybody, yay, and that bothered me, because I don't want to be Mrs. Santa Claus, because Santa Claus isn't our tradition. And so I says, nope, I'm just going to be Grandmother Moon, so I'm not going to be Mrs. Santa Claus. I'm going to come in traditional regalia, as opposed to Mrs. Claus, even though somebody volunteered to be my elf, but I'll say, you can be the little people, and stuff. So, but I really want our kids to see our culture in this season as well. That's why I'm doing a wolf ceremony, which is what we did before every new year. We would go door to door and ask for forgiveness, and before the new year started, and which for us is December 21st, solstice. So I'm trying to convince our leaders in our territory that nobody should be working on December 21st. That's officially our new year. And therefore, everybody should stop on the 20th, give our Indigenous people that time to do ceremony to welcome our new year, which is, the December 21st, when our winter solstice is here. So it's a big ask, but no harm asking. My young people will support that.
Oh, yeah. Imelda, I just want to say that I know when we were growing up on reserve, and the tradition we had was at Haudenosaunee, we'd go door to door. We'd all make biscuits or donuts, and go door to door, and we would, shoot off the rifle at the time, at the appropriate time, and everybody would hear it in the neighborhood and stuff, and people would go from house to house getting donuts. Mike, is that something you did in Akwesasne? Because I know it's a tradition we did. So it's just talking about some of those different kinds of traditions, the things that people did to celebrate in your way. So, Mike, are you there? I don't know if he's there. he could have stepped away, but I'll ask him after. But I think it is, but it was important, and that was in Tyendinaga. And it was a way of saying, yeah, we celebrated, but we celebrated the Creator and all the gifts that he gave to us. And also all of the, during the agreements with different First Nations across the country, what the Crown, especially the Queen, because our relationship was with the Queen in England. And she would give gifts, and the gifts that she gave to us at Tyendinaga was flour. And so we used the flour to make food and to share the food, and we would celebrate that as a gift from the Queen. And they still get flour. I think it was flour and sugar. And at Six Nations, we got a different gift. At Six Nations, we had Bread and Cheese Day. It was a day where we celebrated our tradition, and you still could go to Bread and Cheese Day and then we have a powwow, right, at Six Nations. So it's kind of cool. And so I can remember when I worked in my community at Six Nations for band council, we would be all cutting up these big chunks of bread and big chunks of cheese, and people would be, I got pictures of people standing in line to get the bread and cheese. And so it's kind of those kinds of traditions and stories that people don't hear, the traditions that because of our relationship with the Crown, with the federal government, what happened as we were growing up. We have to bring them back and share them, because people don't know anything about them. They just say, oh, we're going to Bread and Cheese Day. And they don't understand the meaning behind it. But we can do that in the language. We can share the words in the language of that.
Yes. Yes.
I just wanted to share that.
Beautiful. Yeah. Any other questions out there?
Imelda, I'm wondering if there's anybody who wants to talk about their experience of
Yes.
language in their schools or in their community.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
I'm sure there's a few. So we have some bashful people.
Yes.
Imelda, what changed that? You're doing some innovative things in your schools. So what was the sort of the history behind that? How did you come to where you are today?
Well, first of all, I was at I was elder in residence at University of New Brunswick for 7 years. And while I was there, I expanded. Initially, it was supposed to be elder in residence to help the Indigenous students make have a safe environment to be who they are and not have to hide their indigeneity just because they're coming to a university. So the elder in residence was, you need to come do ceremony. We can do ceremony in my office. You need to do this. So that's initially how it started. But then we realized that, oh my goodness, faculty needs to be indigenized, because faculty wasn't understanding why are they so against smudging? Why are they so against, this? And then we realized we needed to be, actually, I built I was able to convince, while I was elder in residence, the first sweat lodge in our Atlantic provinces was at my university, and they really tested me because they were resisting, and they were just like, oh, I suppose we have to do this. I knew there was resistance, because where they made me build it? On asphalt, next to the BMO building. And but I said, I'm still going to build it. You guys will bring your equipment, build the holes in the asphalt, but you'll have to bring sand in so we have a soft place to sit on, So the following year, they ended up giving me some land to build it, you know what I mean? But I think it was their way of like, asphalt, are you kidding? But they were telling me that, oh, well, we've been doing research on sweat lodges, and in Ontario, they have rooftop sweat lodges, and they bring in these some kind of special stones, or something that glows in the dark or something. I says, well, nope, we don't need to do that here. We're not in that big of a rural, urban center. So we still have land. So right now we are, one of our TRC calls to action is to build a Wabanaki Learning Center, which we will have a longhouse, a sweat lodge, all of that. So from that experience, I started expanding to off campus and thinking, well, how come the city of Fredericton doesn't host a powwow? Why does it have to be on campus? So I just been spreading it out to have New Brunswick as a province be responsible for supporting this. So then I retired, and then the chief of this community, the principal, Indigenous principal, had retired, moved to another position. So they wanted some help to help the vice president, who was then appointed principal rather, because he's non-Indigenous. So the community was skeptic in keeping him as a non-Indigenous principal. So they asked if I would help the staff and the principal help indigenize the school. And this is my 3rd year, and I'm loving it because it's, just today I had Hayes Farm. We have a greenhouse, so each classroom has their own little garden. So we're going to be teaching them about the garden. So we already went and we thanked Mother Earth for growing our things. We thanked the building. We thanked there's so much gratitude that's going on. I feel like when our elder Mike was talking about gratitude, yes, I have 3-year-olds that performed in front of 400 guests at the Delta Hotel on September 30th when we were doing our fundraiser for Orange Shirt Society. And my 3-year-olds, just as bravely as could be, went on stage and they did the Thanksgiving prayer before we ate, and we did a spirit plate. And so the audience had to repeat after my 3-year-olds how to give gratitude for the food they were about to eat before they feasted. You know what I mean? So yes, gratitude is so important. So I'm still building, like I'm not done yet, and stuff. So that's how I came to be here, but I'm involving the community because I'm saying there shouldn't just be one elder in your school that's going to do all the work. If you really respect your elder, then you need the community. So I have a wonderful group of women who they're my team, they're my team they're going to be help raise money for a sweat lodge. They're going to help raise money for puberty ceremonies. They're going to help raise money for, this gardening that we're doing and making clothes. All of our children have skirts. And now we have t-shirts for the boys, but and we don't call them uniforms. We just call them sacred, like yesterday, they all wore skirts when we were doing our sacred fire for the Indigenous vet ceremony, and stuff. And anyways, so there's still a lot to be done. So that's how I got to be here. It's only a couple days a week. Last year I did 3. But I'm building a website. I'm doing apps. I'm doing outreach. I'm doing TRC calls to action in law, health, and churches. So I can only spare 2 days a week to be here. But even in these 2 days, like today, I was with my grade 6 students, and we're getting ready. We're telling the winter moon story as opposed to the English Christmas stories. We're telling our own stories. Why is winter moon important? Winter moon was a time for storytelling. Winter moon was a time to make sure that you honored the trees for giving you warmth for your fires, and those kind of things. So yeah, and I did tell them today, I said, there won't be a Christmas tree on the stage We're going to be bringing in spruce boughs and cedar boughs and baskets and regalia and, bear hides and, all of that and stuff. So that's going to be our stage. You won't see anything that's bought at a Walmart.
So a lot of these language and land-based education programs have helped improve the learners
Mhm.
staying in school, getting better marks.
You
A
know,
lot of
yeah, Simon, I was just gonna say, for example, in my grade 6 class, because our school only it starts from 18-month-olds, then it goes to what we call turtle tots, then it goes to K3, 4, 5, kindergarten, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 6. Well, they're done. And today my class was saying, excuse me, my class was saying, we're gonna fail because we don't want to go to the officer school. So now I'm trying to negotiate a grade 7 and 8 space in the city. Yeah, to keep it going.
well,
And
that's
Diamond, I think Diamond, your community is building a high school, right?
Yeah, we're actually building kindergarten to grade 8. Kindergarten, grade 8, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
Yay.
They already built in the road from the health center down over our
Beautiful.
creek. We had a erosion project come in, and they made it so the water had safe at the Indian Creek has nice good pathway to go through and the big tube things they have, and then we built a road over into that where the ball field used to be. That's where we're gonna plant our school.
Wow. And Paulette, that
So
school
good.
every student's gonna have moccasins.
Every student can have
Every
moccasins.
student's gonna have moccasins in
Your
that
own
school.
cubby.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love honestly, they change you. My moccasins.
So
And
cool.
yeah, we got to tell the stories. We got to, and it's not hard. It's just going there and then going talking to your elders and your knowledge keepers and just people. Some people have the most amazing things to share.
They're so
And
grounding too, the moccasins.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love my moccasins. I really, really, really do. And I'm a beader. Like I bead things. So I'm trying to find ways to do some stuff with beading that will help. Oh, look at see.
Here's mine
Oh,
today. So
today
today I'm wearing my hummingbird.
today I'm wearing my feather red to match my outfit. My red feathers. So I'm just lifting it up. There's her. Oh, I like those.
Yeah.
Well, I want to show mine too.
All
Then.
right, Sarah. See, there you go. There you
Ever.
go.
Wear our moccasins.
No, I do. I do. I have. This is a trend. I do it on purpose and with passion. I love it, and people laugh and they kind of, giggle a little bit because every time you go out and do a presentation, they think you have to be so serious about the whole world. And my response to that is, you do. I take what I do seriously. However, there is space for, and we need to do this if you're going to reclaim your culture and your traditions and your language. You've got to be able to explain to people why you're doing certain things to help them understand you. And so I know we didn't do a lot of the First Nations Education Administrators Association. We had been the last 2 years, where it's about 2 years now, we have been focused internally trying to develop materials and products in traditional ways, and talking about what communities do and what the reality is. And in this leadership, maybe it's a whole lot different because you're sharing your gifts. Leaders are part of the whole, and they come to you as a servant to help you become who you are. And so so we are trying really hard to add now more of the traditions and the language to it. So I think that by telling these small stories, and I know that they think, well, why the heck are they talking about that? You know, in these formal settings, and so I'm trying to remind them why we do it, and how important it is, how significant it is that you understand our worldview, because you really don't understand us at all.
Yeah.
And so to be able to share who we are then will help you understand what we do and why we do it. And, you know, people would say, oh, you know, we have to listen to another story. It has nothing to do with this topic, right? And I'm saying, yeah, it does have to do with this topic. And so you break it down. And
Yeah.
so not easy going, but you need to do it. We have to keep doing it. It's reconciliation time. And we remind them that this is happening across the country, and this is legislation, and this is why.
Yeah.
And so you took, you know, and I bring out the titles. You took our talk
Yeah.
about language. You took our talk.
Yeah.
And then about you know, being invisible. It's really becoming a mantra. I created a presentation on it, and people are listening.
Yeah.
They don't have a choice if they ask us to speak.
Yeah.
Just like you, Imelda, you got to just do what you have to do
Right.
to gear it round.
Yeah.
Heaven, what do you want to share?
I was just gonna say, even as Miss New Brunswick, like I'm the second
Oh, yeah.
ever Indigenous Miss New Brunswick in the history of the pageants, and this has been going on since 1955. And the last winner would have been from Woodstock First Nation, and that would have been in 1974. So it's been quite a while. And there's typically one Indigenous person every year in this pageant. So as a second ever, I've made it my job to incorporate little by little, no matter where I am, language or culture. I am always wearing a braid. I always have beaded stuff on. Like when I go to present, like you're saying, I'm dressed to the nines in my traditional wear. Like when we were at the Chiwazizig, I was gifted a beautiful dress, orange dress with a blazer with on it. So for me, like I'm in this position. This is my third school year teaching. I'm only 22. So I'm still learning, but I noticed a little bit by little bit, just adding those things in my daily routine. And when I go to present, introducing myself in the language, introducing my spirit name, wearing moccasins, it's kind of spread almost like wildfire. Like even within my classroom, it started just a little bit, like the word per word. But then as I picked it up and as I was doing this over and over again, my students were too. And then they grow those bigger questions. Well, what's the word for this? Well, oh, you're telling me that Nabauset means moon. Well, how do you say sun? How do you say stars? How would we say that all in a sentence? So I noticed that even like I'm influencing my family now to incorporate language and culture. Me and my sister live together, and we have a whole closet dedicated to our ribbon schools, our malt schools, our hair ties. So just like little bit by little bit, it'll slowly start to build, and it'll be a snowball effect, and everyone around you will be influenced by that.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that these are in the works.
Yeah. And the braid is so important. I just had a young man in grade 6. He's going, he always goes like this and shows me his hair, because I always told him, I always think that students, when they wear braids, or anybody that wears a braid, and I'll say, because that was the first thing cut off at residential school. And so every time, so what we're doing in each of our classrooms, we're doing braiding stations with yarn, so we can start teaching kids how to braid, you know, and stuff, and get inventive and stuff. So that, not only that, it's calming, you know, just braiding, you know, and stuff. So that way, when everybody gets their long hair, and you know, we can braid each other's hair. Yeah. So thank you for wearing braids.
So any other questions? Any other experiences? I'm sure people are working with language of the community.
Okay. Oh, Janelle LeBlanc. Merci. Yeah. She's a teacher at ASD South in St. John. Yeah.
So I've got one last question, Imelda.
Mhm.
So everybody here is not asking questions, but I'm sure what's on their mind is how do you get the work that you're doing going at a new school that has no programs like that?
Well, I'm documenting, so everything that I'm doing, I'm documenting. For example, I initiated what I call Tahoe initiatives. And Tahoe is when we say, it's like an applause. So I wanted our teachers, who are mostly non-Indigenous, and I wanted our teachers to recognize the positive things our students do and not just the not so positive things, because I don't like the idea of send them to the principal's office. If anything, we want them to reward them for volunteering, reward them for hanging up their coat, reward them for keeping their desks clean, for recycling, etc. That's all, so we have an entire board of Tahoe initiatives. So we send one home to the parent to let them know, did you know your child today said something nice to somebody else? Did you know your child today didn't have to be told to pick up their coat, so that's so amazing. And so now we actually color coded the initiatives. And so I'm writing all that down. I'm doing culturally safe environment for learning to be human. Yes, we want them to be Indigenous, but we want them to be kind and generous and grateful, students. So we're teaching them manners. I have a program called Turtle Talks, and it's for young girls, grade 4, 5, and 6, to get them ready for that puberty ceremony. Our program is for boys. We call it Moose Tracks, so that we can teach them not to be bullies towards their sisters and women. So I have the UNB nursing faculty of nursing. They send me 2 students a week that volunteer with me so that they could learn. It's an Indigenous nursing program, so they come and they're my volunteers, but they're also learning. So we're documenting all this, so that it can be something that other schools may want to encourage.
Okay, thank you. So turn it over to Dr. Tremblay to say final words, and then we'll have Mike Mitchell do our closing prayer.
Well, I have totally enjoyed today. I have found all of the initiatives that Diamond and Heaven and Imelda have undertaken are life-changing. And I think that it's not been easy. You've had to carve a path and find ways to make it enjoyable, to make learning fun, to make learning respectful, and it changes you as a human being and connected to culture. This connectedness to place, this connectedness to the land, it's all about language and traditions and self-identity and self-governance. It's all about that. They're all they're all weaved together. You can't isolate. We don't see our world in isolation. We see this connectedness and building relationships as at the core, at the center, at the heart of everything of our lives. And I'm just so grateful that we have people who have begun the journey. And there are many more who are doing this kind of thing that we need to get out and reach and share. We need to do something national about this so that we can get a really broad-based creation going on, that people can just go here, people can just go there. I know our town halls are a mechanism to do that, but I think we need some sort of language initiative. And I want to talk to Ron Ignis, who is the Commissioner of Languages, Indigenous languages. And so I've known him for a really long time, as Mike has. And, it's hard not to be connected when you're all working from an Indigenous or a First Nations perspective, because there's so few of us that have been, blazing trails. But it's making a difference. All of this makes a difference. Everything you do makes a difference. And that's what we have to be mindful of. We have to be mindful that making that difference will contribute to change and transformation in the relationships with the federal government, with the provincial government, with the local government, municipality, and in our own places where we live and where our traditions live. And so I think that I want to hold up Mike Mitchell. I know I've been using his book. He's been an amazing guy. He just does everything, just like you guys, just like you, Imelda, just like you, Diamond and Heaven. This traditional teachings, that he, oh my God, this was written like way long time ago, 2000 or something. I mean, he's been doing this his whole life, trying to document and trying to give us these little booklets. And then the little booklet on the Thanksgiving address, that he spearheaded all of this with the language cultural school in Akwesasne. I mean, thank you. Go on, Mike. I mean, I use this all the time. I learned so much. I know it's in English, but you got some words in it, so I know. So what I'm saying, Imelda, Diamond, Heaven, documenting is so critical in this journey. It is important. And I know you're doing it, and I know you are doing it with passion, and it's crucial, because what it does is leave a trail, and a paper trail. And a paper trail is, how did you get here from there? And so being able to learn about your stories, learning about your culture that was taken away. I know growing up on reserve with a superintendent was a bummer. I mean, they took if we spoke the language in Tyendinaga, they would punish us. They would find a way to take away stuff. And those were the days when you had to get permission to leave the reserve. The superintendent from Indian Affairs, who had control of our lives, really didn't allow you. And so, everybody goes underground and still speaks the language. But the grandparents and the parents are protecting the children, because they were afraid that they would just be kids and speak out, and it would they didn't want them growing up in fear. And so it's all of those experiences, though, that we have to share also, that people don't know about, the damage that was done. So I think that it's really critical now to have a voice and to put these things in writing. And booklets are good. And if you're doing children's books, they're even better, because it makes you simplify and give examples and use the words. So I think that there's a lot of work still to be done, but it is important what you're doing. You make a difference, and I'm so grateful and honored and privileged to learn from you so much today. Nyawai.
Now we'll go, Paulette. So we'll turn it over to Mike Mitchell for the final words.
You're on mute, Mike.
We've had a very good series of discussions today. It warms my heart to hear other elders, especially young people, speak with pride. We're headed in the right direction. We got plenty to do. And so I say to all of you, keep it up. Don't back away. Don't back down, because the strength lies in our culture, in our language, in our ceremony. I'm tempted to sing one fast song for you, because we just finished our harvest ceremony. And in that time, one song is sung to honor the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash. It's a thanksgiving to the natural world, to the natural life. There's many more verses, but I thought I would share just a little bit, because in our Thanksgiving, in our ceremonies, it's an acknowledgement to Mother Earth, to everything that gives us life, gives us strength. And I grew up partly raised by my grandparents, and every morning the sun comes up, I hear my grandfather. He would wake up with the sunrise and he'd offer these words. Thank you, Creator, for the gift of life. And thank you for letting me greet the new sun. And as I greet the new sun, I walk the land. I am thankful for the health of my family, my community. I acknowledge my nation. May we always be thankful for everything that we have, that we can share our ceremonies, we can share our songs, knowledge how to give thanksgiving passed on by our ancestors. And so, as he would say that, I would listen when I was about 3, 4 years old, till I was about 8 before I moved in with my real parents. But the gift of education, our way, is listening, taking in the wisdom of our elders, taking in the language, the spirit of what they believe carries them, gives them strength, make them believe in who they are, and no one can take that away from them. And those were little things that I picked up as a child, and I found out in my 32 years of political life, you need that strength. You need the strength to represent your people. You need the strength to preserve your traditions. Never be ashamed of the things that we inherited from our ancestors. And those are the words that will close off our meeting today, and look forward to our next meeting.
Yeah, we'll go. So Mike talked about the next meeting, which will be on November 30th, 2022, from roughly, well, exactly the same time. We have Legacy of Hope, Teresa Edwards, who's from Listagush. She's Mi'kmaq, and she'll be talking about the work that they do around reconciliation. They talk about residential schools, mostly to First Nations, Inuit, Métis communities, but also to non-Indigenous communities. So I think her words of wisdom will help us in the work that we do in our own school and outside of our community. So Yawa, miigwech everybody. Thank you.